I'm Janelle with Lasting Impression Horsemanship, and I have Sunny here. This is going to be part 2 of his training on day 2. So if you were just watching, we just finished doing the desensitizing to the stick and string and the lead rope to get him to not use the reactive side of his brain and to start exercising that thinking side of his brain, and to get him to turn to that thinking side of his brain as a habit more so than using the reactive side. So by just exercising that thinking side of his brain all the time is going to definitely help grow that side, and him using that reactive side less and less, that's going to shrink down, which is exactly what we're looking for when working with horses. Because a reactive horse is much more dangerous than a horse that's using the thinking side of his brain. So we just finished doing the desensitizing. We did yielding forequarters, hindquarters. I'm going to go ahead and now teach them how to back up. There's about 4 different methods I go about teaching them to back up. But first off, I'm going to go ahead and show them how to lower their head using my stick here. So I'm going to teach him how to lower his head. The reasoning I'm going to do this before I teach him how to back up is if he's lowering his head, he's going to start using his body mechanics correctly. What I want him to do is I want him to pull himself backwards with his hindquarters and really step under himself with his hindquarters and not drag himself back with his forequarters and push himself back with his front end. So if I'm able to get him to lower his head, that's going to help him lift his back up and engage his core muscles and use his hindquarters to actually step underneath him. So one of the first things I'm going to do is teach him by just using the halter here. I'm just going to take this knot and I'm going to hold it, and I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure downwards. If he doesn't move his head down, there, if he went down, I went ahead and released it. If they get to a point where they're kind of stuck, if you just kind of shake their head back and forth a little bit, that usually kind of helps unstick them and they'll lower them. So I'm going to do it again until he really catches onto the concept. He's not getting it. I'm just going to kind of shake it back and forth like this until he starts to kind of unstick it. There he goes. Good boy. And you see how fast I was at releasing that pressure to let him know that lowering his head was the right answer. That time I didn't have to shake his head, but he understood that me pulling down on this halter meant for him to lower his head. Good boy. Here you go. And I mean, I'm using like 2 fingers to do this. It's not very much pressure. Good boy. Good boy. And it's enough that he can feel it. Good boy. Yeah. And I don't know if you can notice, but just from this little bit of us working with him, his entire body language and demeanor has changed immensely. That when he came in here, he was super reactive, he was super nervous, he was just on edge, wondering if something was going to eat him and stuff like that. So right now he's actually relatively calm. He's kind of looking at stuff which I would rather not. I would rather focus on me, but I kind of bumped him back to me, and he came back and gave me his focus there. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him for his head. And he's catching on to this very fast. So I'm going to ask him for his head. Good boy. And that's all got to do with that timing aspect there. So ask him again. Very good. So he's really catching on to that. What we do on one side, we have to do on the other. So lefty seems to be doing pretty good with it. Let's see how righty seems to be doing. So let's go ahead and ask here. Doesn't quite get it yet. Okay, good. So I went ahead and lowered it there. So ask again. Good. Good boy. Yeah. Ask again. Good boy. Yeah. Good boy. Good. So he's definitely catching on to that pretty dang good. So the next one I'm gonna do is I want him to understand that if he gets any type of pressure kind of like above his head area, that means for him to lower his head. So I'm gonna take my stick here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of like tap the air above him and let him know that I want him to lower his head with that. And he's kind of going forward and backwards, so kind of be ready for that. And just continue this pressure and get him to be ready to kind of stop him from going forward and backwards. And continue this pressure until you get the right answer. So he's kind of stuck here. I pulled down on the halter to kind of help him out. He lowered his head and I stopped both the halter and the stick and string, because he was already grasping the whole halter concept very well. And I want him to correlate that tapping here above his head. I want him to be kind of desensitized to it and not worry about the movement above his head. And I want him to understand that with the movement above his head also means for him to lower his head there too. So you can start with just tapping the air above him and then add that helping him with the halter and lead rope. So I'll ask him again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just keeping up a steady rhythm. So he's got like 4 chances. There it is. He lowered his head there. And eventually, first I'll initially kind of pull down. If he doesn't, and he's stuck, I'll start to do the whole wiggling of the halter, just like we did when we first started. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the halter. We start wiggling. This is going to be like tapping your head, rubbing your belly at the same time until you get your answer. Tap, 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 tap. There you go. You lowered it there just for a little bit. And I don't need a whole lot, just enough that he actually lowered it. So, tap, 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 tap. Oh, good boy. Good boy. I know that was the reward, because again, the way they learn is the release of the pressure. So that's how he's learning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and halter, good. So he hasn't 100% comprehended the whole tapping first means to lower his head. He's been still needing the assistance with the halter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, good boy. And I'm going to try if maybe I actually tap the top of his head, if he will go ahead and put it down. So if he's not, so I'm just going to add that halter pressure there. And just use that driving pressure to see if that'll help him down. So I'm going to start with just the air. 2, 4, tap the top. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. There it is. Good boy. And you see how every single time I start out with just tapping the air, because if I go straight to either tapping his head or just straight to the halter, he's never going to get any lighter than that. So he's coming along on the side. He's not great at it. He hasn't understood necessarily that the waving above means for him to lower his head, but he's nowhere near as reactive as he was when I was waving stuff above him. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. There he is. There. Good boy. So the next thing I'm going to try and teach him is by tapping here under his chest. I want him to understand that he's supposed to lower his head as well. So that's going to basically be the same exact thing as what we did up here. So by just going ahead and tapping here in the leg, I'm just 1, 2, 3, 4. If he doesn't do it, I'm going to add with the halter there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. There you go. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Good. And you see I'm adding the halter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Add the halter and he's lowering it. So that's good there. So it's just going to take repetition with that. So instead of boring you while I do that, that's basically all I do is continue with that. The next way I'm going to teach him to lower his head is by tapping his ribs here, kind of like where your legs were to stand here, or to be when you're under saddle. So if I tap him here, I want him to understand that that also means for him to lower his head. So I'm going to tap, 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 ask, and he lower his head. And that's what I want him to understand. So tap, 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 ask, good. So he's getting really well with the whole halter aspect. He understands the halter very well. So tap, 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 that's good. And so it's just a matter of continuing to practice that and being consistent with it and getting your timing right. That is going to get it where he's going to get much better at it. And so this is the right side. So what I do on the right side, I have to go ahead and do on the left side as well. So I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing on the other side, but instead of sitting there and making you guys watch me do that, which is almost like paint drying, I'll go ahead and just do that off the camera to go ahead and do that there. So let's kind of stop there, and that can kind of be the finish of his process for today. He didn't do a whole heck of a lot of work, but we definitely got him using the thinking side of his brain over this reactive side of his brain here. He definitely seems like a calm horse now instead of the reactive horse he was when he first came in, or we first started with. So I'm hoping that when the owner watches this video and stuff, that they definitely think that they have some hope for him. So, and this is just, like I said, the second day of working with him here, and I guess technically my third time working with him at all. So, in basically kind of like 3 hours, we've accomplished all this with him, and he was a handful, that's for sure, when we first started. But you can accomplish a lot if you have the same communication and are able to communicate on the same level with them and understand their body language and be able to communicate your body language with them. And that's what a good horseman is they're able to communicate on a level with the horse that you and the horse understand and get that good bond and that trusting bond between the two of you. And pretty much once you accomplish that and establish that bond with the two of you, they'll pretty much do anything you ask of them. So it's a really rewarding feeling when you do accomplish something like that. And they are basically just kind of looking for a good leader that they will take the spot if they have to, but they would rather not if they can help it. So he's kind of creeping in here a little bit here as I was rubbing him. So I'm just going to back him up and let him know that, hey, that was not okay. This is still my space. So I'm going to back him up there just a step. So I was rubbing him, letting him know that he did a good job. And so he was trying to creep in closer. Oh, that's good. So just kind of took a step here. So I'm just going to be like, hey, you got to back up. It's all those little things that happen that they will try and get away with. And if you don't pick up on them, those are little things that'll start getting you in trouble or might kind of hinder your success on that. So being very cautious or conscious of what the horse is telling you with his body language is going to be very important, and getting good about reading your horse's body language and make sure that your body language is displaying to them what you're trying to get them to do is going to be very important as well. So until, I guess, tomorrow with him, we will check in tomorrow and I'll let you know how that one goes. So until next time, remember, horses are horses, not people. Thanks.